Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin and look at the possibility of a short-term move to 20K. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So one of the things we've talked about on the channel a lot, right, are these bubbles, these short-term bubbles that can form with Bitcoin even in a multi-year bull market or a long market cycle. We had one back in 2019. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember this move in 2019. Bitcoin got above the 20-week moving average and it rallied 250% to 14K. Now we've gotten above the 20-week moving average again, and so far we've rallied about 90% or so since we got above it. And this is quite substantial for Bitcoin, considering that the current price, so this is actually slightly behind because it only shows closing prices, but you can see the current price at the time of this video is around 15.5 thousand. So the question, of course, that's on a lot of people's minds is 20K possible in the short term? Well, of course it is possible because we know that these Bitcoin bubbles do sometimes form. If we take a look at our regression band, we have poked our head above it. Okay, we've poked our head above the regression band as we talked about, and just looking at it, we come up for a breath of fresh air. We're looking above. Imagine this is kind of like the ocean over here, and this is the sky. We came above. We're seeing kind of how high the sky is. How high could we go? And but also recognizing, you know what? There's a possibility we come up. We don't like what we see right now, and we come back down and continue on. Okay, this is always a possibility. Now, if we were to go to 20K, let's just get an idea of what that would look like. So 20K is up here. So we're just going to draw a line right at 20K or so. So right here. So this would be the target that we would be looking at. And again, I don't think, I contend, I know a lot of people would not agree with this statement. I do think it will take a longer period of time to get to a sustainable 20K. A lot of people would like to see us just go up to 20K and just continue the run, right? Continue the run in the short term, watch it go to $250,000 in 2021. I do not think this will happen. And honestly, even if you don't believe in lengthening cycles, I think that there's enough evidence to show that just from a diminishing ROI standpoint, it would not go to 250,000 this market cycle just by looking at diminishing returns. And I think most people would agree with that, honestly, whether they talk about 4-year cycle theory or lengthening cycles. I know there are a few exceptions. There's some models out there that would predict higher, but for the most part, most people I think agree that returns are diminishing. If you look at market cycle ROI, just measured from market cycle bottom, and let's also just throw on the date and price range. So the first cycle, it took around 47 weeks, and we went up around 54,000%. The second one, we went up around 45,000% over 106 weeks, so about twice the time. This cycle, we went up about 11,000% over 153 weeks. So you can see we've been at it about 50 to 60 weeks each time, and that the ROI is decreasing each time. For those who are hoping to see a $250,000 Bitcoin or something like that, it would mean from market cycle bottom, which was back at around 3,100 back in December of 2018. If you're looking for that in the short term, then what you would be looking for would be let's go all the way up to around 250,000. You'd be looking at a 7,000% return over the same time period, basically the same time period that we saw during the last cycle. Is it possible? Anything's possible. It does not seem to fit what we've seen in the past, though. It does not seem to fit what we've seen, but of course anything is possible. Now, if we do come up, and to give you an idea where 250,000 is, so 250,000, and I don't think I measured this quite accurately. Let's go up a little bit higher, so 253. So this would be about an 8,000% move over about the same time period that we saw last market cycle. Now, if it were to do that, to give you an idea of what that would look like, we would need to get to a 20K pretty quickly, hold it as support, and then continue to rally like that. That's essentially what it would have to look like. And to me, this seems like it's just not possible. Like I just don't think that this is possible. because we recognize that each cycle it is taking longer. If we look at or at least the cycles are diminishing in terms of their returns. If we take a look at say trend angles, let's pull up trend angles for a second. And this depends on what aspect ratio you're using. This one's about 71 degrees. This one, as measured from the bottom, is about, maybe 50 degrees or so, 49 degrees. This one is about 31 degrees. And if we were to do something like this, it would actually make the trend angle about the same. And again, it just doesn't follow the trend that we've seen. I think it's more likely that we will see something where it's the angle's a lot lower and it's much further out like this, so that the basically the trend continues. And then also the nice thing would be we would also come up to this overvaluation regression band that we've come up to 3 times in the past, right? So 3 separate times we've come to it. Now, on the off chance that Bitcoin does rally and go to 20, and let's say it goes to 20K and then rallies on up to 40K, 50K, how high could we go? Well, according to this model, which again, all models are wrong, some are useful. According to this model, it would anticipate in the instantaneous time frame of it going to 51,000 up to 76,000. So this would be that band. If, of course, over the next year, that's going to increase a little bit, maybe upwards of 80 to 90,000 if it were to do it by the end of 2021. However, if it's what I think and it's going to take a little bit longer than that, maybe by the end of 2022 at the earliest, 2023 is when I think, then this band will be a lot higher. It could be upwards of $120,000, $140,000. So I think the longer that Bitcoin takes to build up to this massive paradigm shift in what the price of Bitcoin is, the higher it can theoretically go. The short, if it moves up quicker and it does something like this, first of all, if it were to go up quicker, I don't think it would go up nearly this high. But if it were to go up quicker and say do something like this, then I think it would that's going all the way out to 2022. So let's take a note. Okay, this would be the end of 2021, so we'd be looking around this ballpark. So if it were to go up quicker, then it would need to do something like that, right? And if it were to reach this region, then I would probably consider at that point the cycle to be nearly over. But we'll see what happens, right? I mean, as I've said all along, all models are wrong, some are useful. I still think it's going to take us a substantial period of time to get to a sustainable 20K. This is what we've always said. Short-term $20,000 are always possible. I mean, heck, back in 2019, a $14,000 Bitcoin was actually more impressive at that time than a $20,000 Bitcoin would be today. According to the fair value of Bitcoin, which a lot of places kind of have their own fair value. Most places have it around $9,000, $10,000. Back in 2019, according to my analysis, the fair value was around $4,500. It was over 200% overvalued. Right now, for the price of Bitcoin to be 200% overvalued, it would need to be at around $30,000. So this move in 2019, in my opinion, would be more substantial than this move in 2020 if it were to take it to 20K. Now, if it were to take it to 20K, what would happen next? Well, whether you believe in the 4-year cycle or lengthening cycles, you might expect it to hold resistance, okay? So if it does go to 20K, if you look at the last cycle and we just draw, say, like a trend line over, this was the peak at around, just under $1,200. If we draw it across and zoom in, what happened, right? So Bitcoin went up to this level, held it as resistance, then it came all the way back down 36% or so. It came back up above it and then back down. And then the third time it broke the prior all-time high, then it was off to the races. This was also when a lot of altcoins started making moves once Bitcoin got to a sustainable prior all-time high of just under $1,200. So even if you think we're going to go there in the short term and you think that the end of 2021 will be the next peak, then there's a good chance that even if this does happen, we would hold it as resistance. And if we were to hold it as resistance and we were to retrace like last cycle down 35%, well, it could take us back down to $13,000, which might correspond to the 20-week moving average at that time. Okay, if something like that were to happen. Something else I wanted to show you guys, just to get a more macro view. We've looked at this trend line before. Remember, a lot of trend lines are pretty useless because Bitcoin has a way of blasting through a lot of trend lines because, I mean, it really just doesn't care about any single trend line. But there are some trend lines that are fun revisiting. And one of them's like this one, looking back at how many times it is essentially held some type of support on this trend line right here. So looking, and it's hard to draw it exactly right when I'm looking at such a long period of time, but generally speaking, we have a lot of we actually did a whole video on this trend line, because if you just keep going further and further back, it seems to be quite impressive on how many times the price of Bitcoin has interacted with this trend line. Let me just quickly show you guys. I'm just going to delete some of this stuff here. So if we go all the way back, and let's just extend this trend line out and go all the way back, and then let me draw it over here and fix it down to those bottoms, so like that, and then we're going to extend it all the way out. Okay. Now you can see that each cycle, at least for the last 2 cycles, we've had a period of undervaluation below that trend line. So we had it over there, we had a brief one over here, we held it as support here, we basically rode this trend line during the last cycle, support in this one, and then it was the peak of the first market cycle, right? That's the general idea. So peak, then it was support, then we basically rode the trend line, now we're riding the trend line again. But just looking at it over the last, say, couple years or so, you can see that we've been bouncing kind of around this trend line. And one plausible way to get to 20K, one plausible way would just be to go there in the short term and try to hold it as support, which again is a possibility. Another plausible way, right, is we kind of see it bouncing off the trend line, right, coming down, bouncing off it again, coming down, bouncing off it again, coming down, bouncing up. If it were to come back down, it's just business as usual, right? And even in the world where we go up to 20K, we could come back down and bounce off of it, maybe come back up to 20K, test it again, and then continue on like that, and then continue on out. This is also a possibility. So again, I want to stress here that we want to be able to pivot, right? So if you think that it has to be 4 years, recognize there's a chance that might not be. Also, I would say the opposite is true as well, right? I mean, like if Bitcoin goes to 100K in 12 months, I'm not going to be stubborn and say, you know what, I'm just going to hold all my Bitcoin because I think the peak is 2 years later. I mean, if Bitcoin gets to 100K next year, then let's just call it a wrap and join the party a couple of years later. But I think going forward, it's if we just say let's consider the possibility that it will take longer, and then just be prepared for it, because if it does, then at least we were more conservative. And if it doesn't, if Bitcoin moves higher quicker and goes to 20K and then beyond in the short term, then we're going to try to capitalize on that too. Okay. So again, a lot of people have always asked me, like, what would be something that I would say, okay, I would discount lengthening cycles. The key thing I've always said, right, this has not changed. It would be, I want to see a sustainable $20,000 by the beginning of 2021. If we can get to a sustainable 20K by 2021, then we're cooking, right? We might be, 2021 could be a great year. Maybe Bitcoin will go up 10x or 5x, 5 to 7x or something, right? This is possible if Bitcoin were to get to and I guess I should measure it from the bottom. So as measured from the bottom, from say $3,000, then Bitcoin might be able to go up like 25, 30x or something, as measured from $3,000. But I want people to be cautious, because there's a lot of, I think most analysts out there are definitely proponents of seeing a 20K in the short term, and not just seeing it, but sustaining it and continuing on up. And I just want to be a little bit contrary here and say, you know what, it would be nice if that happens, but let's also be prepared for what I would consider a more likely scenario, where even in the event that we go to 20K, it would likely hold resistance, and we're going to have to work at it for a while to really break through. And even this scenario, I mean, you can see it, this still seems very bullish, but still gets us to a sustainable 20K, essentially, less than a year from now, right? I've always said fourth quarter of 2021 seems like a good time. And part of it is just recognizing that, in the last market cycle, as measured from the top, we got to a sustainable prior all-time high within the regression band. And for us to get to it again within the regression band, it's going to take another, 11 months or so. Because the fourth quarter of 2021 would be October. We're currently in November, so we're looking at least 11 months in terms of what I would consider to get to a sustainable 20K. And we'll see if I'm wrong. I know a lot of you guys are very opinionated on this and like to tell me that the theory is wrong, and that's fine, right? That's fine if you want to do that, because it could be wrong, right? It could be wrong, but it doesn't change the fact that we've been aggressively accumulating, and we're prepared for whatever happens. Okay, we're prepared for a short-term move up and a continued rally if that happens, but we're going to even be more prepared if we come up and then come back down and test it for a while before ultimately breaking out to the next paradigm shift in the price of Bitcoin. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Remember, we do have a premium list. You can find that at intothecryptoverse.com. You get access to weekly premium reports, weekly premium videos, a Telegram alerts channel, a Telegram chat room, a risk dashboard, which is what I used to trade, as well as now I'm launching TradingView indicators as well. So you can pay with crypto for 6 or 12 months. For 12 months, you get a 15% discount. I would encourage you guys to check it out if you guys are wanting more content that I'm already putting out. And at the very least, subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 50,000 subscribers, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.